Having kids doesn't make you unfit. It merely exposes whether or not your approach actually works in real life. Hello and welcome to Beast of Burden. My name is Paul Bassett. I run Hounds of Health here in Wandsworth, London. And if you've not listened to this podcast before, I help busy people take charge of their health. I give you strategies. I make it easy to implement them into your life, into the busy schedules that you have, to help you overcome any challenges and obstacles that have been preventing you from making progress. And if you want to listen back to some of the other episodes that we've done, you can find them on Spotify, YouTube, and give them a good listen. Today, this is something close to my heart because I'm going to be talking about how you stay fit if you've got children. Whether you've got children on the way, you've got children who are growing up very young, and how you stay fit as you balance all the other areas of your life, your career, your social life, your own sense of self, and how you get the results that elude many people. And I to be quite honest, how many people have you sat down with, and you may be one of those people yourselves, and say, look, you know, I'm no longer fit. Before I had kids, I was in great shape, and now I'm so far away from that person, I don't know what to do. I want to try and give you a light at the end of the tunnel to help you feel like this is a journey that can actually have a positive ending. Because I've been there, I've got two kids. I've got a 10-year-old and I've got a 7-year-old, both boys. And obviously I run my own business. I have a wife who is very busy, works in a challenging profession herself. And we want to bring our kids up to not only know who we are, because we're at home, we're not just spending our life at work. And we want our kids to have a healthy approach to their own well-being without giving them complexes around food and body image and things like that. So perhaps it's worth kind of casting a picture of some of the typical things that I see when I'm approached by people who want to work with us. They've had kids. Their kids are young, 5, 6, 7, maybe 10, maybe early teens. And the last time they felt really, truly in control of their health was before their kids were born. For many of those people, it's in their 30s, 40s, and they feel quite distant from those days when they used to go for a run, when they felt like it, pop into the gym every day because it was on the way to work. They'd have a busy social life. Really, the time was theirs to spend in whatever way they wanted. Then they had kids. And there's two angles that, you know, that we really need to take into account when people have kids. The first one is, well, certainly when you have your first child, it's a massive change. 1 minute, literally the day before the birth of your child, if someone says, do you want to go out and get coffee? Do you want to go out for a meal tonight? You can do it, you know. I know it's not comfortable if you're heavy pregnant, but there is still that possibility. So, hey, should we just go out? Yeah, let's do it. And then the next day, your entire routine is upended. It's completely different, and you're left with a completely different schedule. And if it's your first child, it's a big shock. It's a big shock. You go from 0 to 100 in a few seconds. The other angle is if you have had children, then you are now in this, I suppose it feels like a ball that's gathered momentum as it rolls down a hill, and you're picking up things as you go down that hill. Not only are you trying to balance your own timetable, you're now trying to balance your child's timetable, whether you're dropping them off at school, picking them up, doing after school clubs, balancing time that they're playing with friends, trying to deal with childcare issues in the holidays, trying to cook meals for more than one person at timelines that don't work for you, trying to balance ill children with work, trying to be a high performer at work. You know, often as your children get older, your career becomes more challenging because you become maybe more senior in your role, you get more responsibility. And it's like a stone that's gathering more and more snow as it goes down that mountain until it becomes this huge, unwieldy beast that no one's going to be able to stop. And then at some point, you get some indication that you need to take charge of your health. And what ends up happening is you go, oh my God, my lifestyle and this scenario I'm in has so much momentum, I don't know how to get off this. I don't know how to stop this. I just know I need to change. I'm not happy with my body. I'm not happy with my fitness. Two kind of consequences of that. Either resignation to your new lifestyle in which you are disempowered in your health, or something happens which makes you go, now I need to take it seriously. And then that sets you off on the path in which you try and do something about it. I'm going to be dealing with the second kind of person, because they're the person who reaches out and says, look, I need some help. And sometimes I'm the first person they speak to. And sometimes they've tried everything else. So sometimes they've tried doing it on their own. They've tried to fit it in. They've tried to come up with their own plans and failed. And therefore they've realized they need some help. Other people go right from the start. They say, look, I'm not going to be able to do this on my own. I need some help. My kids are 10 and 7. It was a big shock having one. But you get to about 3 and you say, we've got this nailed. Yeah, we've got this nailed. Kids now at nursery. We've got a good balance of sleeping through the night. And then you have your second one and the whole thing goes, I forgot what this was like. And now it's double, because as one sleeps, the other one wakes up. You're always continually knackered, and your timetable suddenly changes. Obviously your wife, if you're the husband, your wife suddenly has her timetable completely shifted. If the pregnancy was straightforward, there's still recovery, and obviously if it wasn't straightforward, there's even added recovery. As a woman, obviously you're dealing with a very demanding person who wants you all times, and particularly in those early stages, a baby really wants its mum, and as a husband, trying to find your role in that, particularly in your first one, can be a bit challenging. Certainly when the second one comes along, then you have to take charge of the toddler or whoever your first child is. Maybe they're a bit older, and so roles are constantly changing. And I think the one thing that differentiates my 20s from my 30s and 40s is that my 20s, actually, when I look at it, as much as there was career progression, and I took a lot of risks, and I had some great times, the ground that I was walking on was much more stable in some ways. Since I've had kids, there's been much more fluctuations. There's been much more flux. It's been predictable and unpredictable. One thing I'm always trying to balance is my kids love predictability. They're creatures of habit. They need to go to bed at the same time. They like the same TV shows. They like the same foods. And they thrive, actually, on a certain amount of predictability. I think, from my experience, as much as my kids don't want to go to bed at certain times, if they get a good night's sleep, if they have that structure, they feel far more secure. However, when something goes wrong in that structure, like the kids are ill, or work gets particularly busy, and the kids are ill, and then your wife is ill, or your husband is ill, or something happens that you didn't predict, it's suddenly the floor, the ground that you're on really shifts, and it's very unsteadying, and you can find yourself in a bit of a siege mentality, just constantly jumping from one obstacle to the next, trying to solve what's in front of you and not actually focusing on you. And the thing about having kids is that immediately you have to think about someone else. That person is helpless, A young child really can't do anything for themselves. Yes, they get more independence as they get old, but you're doing a lot for them. I've got plenty of clients with kids in their teens, and they're still carting them about. They still obviously care about them with the same level of worry or whatever. And now they're turning into young adults, and there's a new set of challenges. What ends up happening for a lot of people, and we kind of forget about, we get to about 18 and we say, oh no, once we're 18, or certainly when we have kids, we suddenly go, well, I don't get to do anything for myself anymore. I've got to do things for other people. And what we end up doing is parking our own wants, parking our own needs, and really focusing on someone else. And that can leave us wanting, it can leave us feeling a bit bereft, it can leave us feeling lost. And the further you get away from your own needs, the more you forget what it is to be yourself, and trying to reclaim that can feel like you're somehow betraying the people around you. I see a lot of people and they're like, well, what happens if you did something for yourself? And they're like, you can see the visceral reaction that people have when you give them the possibility you can focus on themselves. And also sometimes you can see the relief in their faces. Oh, right, I can actually focus on me. I think it's so common. And it's more common in women than it is in men. I do speak to a lot of women who their husbands already have a workout plan. Husbands already go, they already take part in a sport, and they're not doing so themselves, but they love it. They really want to do it again. They're just not sure how to do it. They almost need to give themselves permission. And when they do, they suddenly realize that they missed it and they're getting so much out of it. Having children puts every system that you've developed under pressure. And prior to me having kids, my systems had very little pressure. It's not to say that I didn't have challenging things at work, I didn't have challenging approaches to my life. Of course I did. But I had a little bit more margin for error. If I trained really, really hard and I beasted myself, I would sleep in at the weekend. If I had a really heavy night out, I sleep in. If I was stressed at work, I come back and I didn't have to do anything else. Go out with friends, or I could just, sit in front of a TV and drift into some kind of like vegetative state. And, you can, equal and opposite reaction. The harder you train, the more you could relax. Whereas now, I know that if I train really hard, if I haven't controlled other areas of my life, get my nutrition, have some good night's sleep the night before, know that I don't have anything busy the next day, if any of those things go out of whack, I'm completely destroyed for a few days. I'm recording this on a Thursday, and Tuesday, I did a long drive, taking the kids back from Devon after seeing my mum, and Tuesday night, I just had awful night's sleep, like 2.5, 3 hours, and I was up doing some classes here at 6 a.m. So I was up before then, I was up at 5, and I only had a few hours sleep, and then I have training that I planned, and it was a challenging training session, and literally last night I was wiped out. And I had to get a good night's sleep today, or last night, and I did, luckily. But imagine if I hadn't. Imagine if I had very young kids, and I had the luxury, the fact my kids are sleeping through. Now imagine I'd done exactly the same sequence, but now I've got a 2-year-old who wakes up 3 times in the middle of the night. And I've already had one bad night, and I've trained hard, and I've, done a long journey on the Monday in a car. All of a sudden, I'm wiped out for a week, and then I'm more susceptible to getting ill. So it is much harder to balance, and you've got to kind of give yourself permission that that is the landscape that you're operating in. You can't pretend that a plan that worked for you when you were 25 with no kids and a job with less responsibility is going to work 10 years later with a young kid, or 20 years later with a job that's now requiring so much more attention. So what we do is I have a program minimum, and I think it's the same. If you're doing this for yourself, have a program minimum. Have a program that you can do whatever life throws at you. And you can modulate the intensity based on where you're at. So the way we work here is that I like people in twice a week. I know that they can guarantee 2 times a week. Any less, and you're not going to see the changes that you want. The biggest thing someone can do is walk through the door. First things I want to do is actually get someone to make a commitment to themselves with the goal that they've actually bought into and that means something to them. They recognize the position they're in and the challenges that they're currently facing. And they acknowledge that they want to solve those problems. They allocate some time to solve them, and they allocate a sense of trust in themselves and us in order to get that done. Then I want to make sure that the time they give me is productive. So our focus is that with those 2 hours, there is a plan, that they know exactly what they've got to do, because those 2 hours, things need to happen. As soon as it's like, what do they say? If you want to get something done, give it to a busy person. A lot of the people we work with kids are very good at organizing their timetable. once you can make that time, once you bookend it, once you fight and protect it, you have to be aggressive with the timetable. I mean, it's the biggest thing that you can do when you've got kids, when it comes to solving the health issues that you have and achieving your goals, is to be militant with your timetable. It is probably the biggest skill you can develop. Build that approach to your timetable, carve out the time, get other people in your life to buy into your goal, tell them that you're going to be doing this. Because if you don't tell your husband or wife, and then you say, oh, I'm going off now, and they're like, I've got the kids, who's cooking? You know, well, they'll sabotage, sometimes feel sabotage, you know. Get them to buy into it, make them part of your accountability team, bookend that, be aggressive with it. If people book something over it, tell them that the effect is having, look, when you do this, I feel like this, you know. Make sure that they understand the consequences of them booking meetings over your protected time, not supporting you with that. It is really important. But that's why I only ask for 2 hours, is because it is a big ask. And often with very busy timetables, 2 hours is all that someone can give me. But what I do know is that once you've carved out 2 hours, it's easier to do 2.5, 3. You're more inclined to be wanting to move, and you'll find excuses. The consequences of being better at setting a boundary around your time is you set boundaries in other areas of your life. And the biggest thing I think anyone can do when they've got kids is boundaries. You give boundaries to your children, because if you give them untethered access to the internet or a phone, that's not going to be beneficial. If you don't create a boundary for yourself, then you can't look at a child and say, look, I'm going to give you a boundary, but I've got no sense of boundaries myself, right? So you're patterning good behaviors for your kids. I mean, that's one of the main drivers. And I think, honestly, you have to say that. You have to be a walking example. You know, your children are apprentice adults. They're going to grow up, whether you like it or not. And they are going to learn from you. They're going to learn the good and the bad, and hopefully more of the good. And you lead by example. So it's really important that you start, putting boundaries around your time. Then once you've created the time, you've got to be productive with that time. Anything you do has to be focused. It has to be, well designed. So, what you don't want to do is make all that time and then just waste it, because then you're going to feel resentful to the process. So that's where getting some help will really work for you. I mean, that's why we exist. It's because the people we work with made the decision. They said, look, I value my time. I value my time with my family, my kids, and I want you to be productive with my time. That's why I'm paying you. And I am productive with their time. Now, having said that, when we talk about the intensity and the ability to recover, if someone walks through the door and they're absolutely drained, I'm not going to beast them. I'm not going to expect 100% from them. I'm just happy that they're there. And I think the biggest thing you can lose is if you don't show up, it's much easier to lose a habit you spent a long time building than it is to have built it. And so whether you turn up, it's like the podcast I did last week about being ill, just back off. You just back off, build that relationship with your coach so they know that when you back off, it's not you just quitting, being lazy, it's the fact that you actually need it. So what we find is that just that minimum commitment can start having a big influence in other areas of your life. If you can commit to just 1 or 2 things, make your fitness journey simple when you've got kids. You don't want to be doing fasting. You don't want to be doing ketogenic diets. You don't want to be doing really, really complex supplementation and all those things when you've got to cook a meal for your kids. You don't want to be doing a meal for that person, a meal for that person, a meal for that person. You want to make it really simple. The whole family can enjoy the food. If you need to make small tweaks for your portion size, that's up to you. But you're not going to be saying, well, hey kids, all we're going to eat at the moment is paleo, and you're not allowed this and you're not allowed that. It's going to be really difficult to implement, And you've got to do something you can consistently build into a habit. As I said, kids are creatures of habit. Your life will be around your kids' timetable as much as you want to create your own independence. But, kids have to go to school. Kids are sleeping at certain times. They need more sleep. So it's changing the way you do things. You can't just go out and forget about your kids and hope they cook food themselves. So make it simple, make it repeatable, and reduce the decision fatigue. The more complexity you add into a fitness program when you have kids, the more chances of it going wrong. There's a reason I have a single gear bike. I don't want to be fixing loads of gears all the time. I just want to be able to get my bike out in whatever weather and just ride. I need to tighten up the screws occasionally. I need to put new brakes on there. I need to tighten a few things, but that's it. It's really simple and that works for me. Look, I'm in London. There's no hills, but there's very few hills. But I don't want extra complexity. Because anyone with kids is going to be suffering from decision fatigue. You really want to make everything as simple as possible so that you don't have too many moving parts in your fitness program, which can lead you to feel overwhelmed. And obviously, if you're overwhelmed, it's much easier to do nothing. So I'm going to cut that short here. Thanks for your time. I know if you've got kids, you've already given me more time than perhaps you have. If you want to find out more about what we do, then please just visit our website, houndsofhealth.co.uk, or you can listen to some of these other podcasts, both on Spotify, iTunes, or on the YouTube channel. I cover so many different subjects, some of which might stick and help you. If not, then you can just reach out and maybe in the comments, ask a couple of questions or share your experiences. And of course, you can just DM us and happy to help in any way we can. So thanks a lot. Until next week, have a great week.